since the Build Back After pandemic, I think it's become much more of a strategic business model decision that we have a network that we can tap into. I think the word now that's being used is a collective. You develop your own collective. If you are in the business event space, the most valuable representative to the brand is their partner on the strategic and the creative part, more than just a small piece or occasionally doing it. Now we're seeing collaboration happen for strategic business reasons.
Strong companies, lasting partnerships, powerful events. Welcome to the Experience Builders Podcast.
Chris, always good to see you.
Hey man, good to see you too, Khalil. How's your May going?
May is just rocking and rolling. Where I live, we've got tons of storms happening. Rain's here. The hot's coming in.
You're in Hurricane Alley.
Tornado Alley.
Tornado.
But yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
See, can you tell?
Tornado Alley.
Yeah.
You're in Hurricane Alley. You're the one that's close. You're not quite in the coast, but you're close.
Well, and you're in Oklahoma, the Oklahoma City area, and that is, man, there's been just some legendary. I remember the one from Moore, Oklahoma. That was just
some crazy stuff.
Yeah. And I have, having lived in Omaha, Nebraska, I've watched that recently. All that footage that's coming out of there was just crazy what happened up there. So
it's wild.
Living in a hurricane zone is, you see it coming 5-6 days out, right? It's like being stalked by this giant killer turtle, right? It's just always offshore. And you can make a decision as whether you're going to stick around for that versus fire, earthquake, tornado. You don't get the warning. You don't
get the warnings. You get 30 minutes maybe. But
I will
you're kind of in the tornado of trade show season. It's been a busy have for you.
You know what? I see what you did there. Nice segue. It is. This is wonderful to have stuff going on, but and be busy. But this week in particular, we've got the NPE, the plastic show every 3 years that takes place in Orlando, Florida. And that is, it just opened yesterday after an 11-day move-in, which feels unheard of. It's like the ConExpo show in Las Vegas. Las Vegas has lots going on, and I'm out there next week. So yeah, we are, we know there'll be a quiet settling down in the summer months, which, we both are grateful for and cry about, but really we're in it right now. So and we're doing great, and love how my team is showing up and performing. So
well, that's great. Well, we got a fun and exciting topic today. One that is probably needs more explanation, which is why we're talking about it. I think a lot of times people can have misconceptions, stereotypes, stigmas, whatever you want to call it, about collaboration. Maybe that's not even the proper term for it. Maybe a collective, outsourcing partners. But basically, we want to talk about better together and just the value of having a network of experts, of partners in your back pocket as you're running your business in the trade show industry. And so we'll define that a little bit more, but really want to get to that value at the end of the day. So let's just talk about what is a collective, a outsourcing partner. Let's define that for our audience.
So I think this is a fantastic topic. By the way, one of the reasons I put this on our agenda is I am off to next month. I'll be over in Malaga, Spain at the IFAS World Summit, which IFAS, for those that don't know, I think most do, it's kind of the international European version of the EDPA, Experiential Design and Producers Association. But their theme is really community and collaboration, much more than us. They call networking and partnering up with other companies, collaboration. And if you think about it, you take a third of the U.S., and that's the equivalent of 13 countries over in Europe. So they're all collaborating with international partners regularly, whereas we just, might pack up a project in San Francisco and ship it to Las Vegas or to Denver, and that could be a 3 or 4 country journey over there. So they, much more than us, they've learned to rely on their partnerships there. You and I were talking at the break. That used to be known as outsourcing here in the States, which I think a lot of people have a negative connotation about that. You don't want to admit that you've outsourced, or you don't want to tell your customer that maybe you're outsourcing that work. We've all done it. If you don't produce your own graphics in-house, you're outsourcing your graphics and you have a graphics partner. Very few own their own trucks and do their own transportation or freight, right? So you've had partners to do that. Same with furniture and with AV. I think, Khalil, since the return, and build back after pandemic, I think it's become much more of a strategic business model decision that you're going to, we used to say, oh, we have a network that we can tap into. I think the word now that's being used is a collective. You develop your own collective, and now it's become part of your planned business process to strategically outsource or to partner with a company, whether it's on part of a project or all of the project. There is no question in my mind, and if you are in the business event space, the most valuable representative to the brand is the one that's their partner on the strategic and the creative part, right? And if whether it's an agency or an exhibit house, we're seeing more decisions that are being made to help the client spend their budget intelligently. And if that means, hey man, I'm going to have, Griffin's company build something for us in Vegas rather than ship it from Buffalo, New York, or, from Charlotte, North Carolina, because the round trip freight costs are so insane right now. It's going to completely eat up the client's budget. So I think sometimes, Khalil, there's an economic reason that's happening, and you go, well, is it weird to be partnering or collaborating with what somebody might say is a competitor or an alternative source for the brand? Look, there's so many moving parts and pieces in our industry and on every project. The variables are, in some cases, countless. Right. All of them have to work for success to be present in a project. And so what I found is very few companies, if we're honest, actually fulfill everything. Everybody's got, partners or collaboration. So this is just, I think the conversation is great because this is more than just a small piece or occasionally doing it. Now we're seeing collaboration happen for strategic business reasons.
Yeah. Well, I think
you see this, you see any of that?
Oh, all the time. And I think it's one of the most valuable things whenever I think of outsourcing or having those partners that are in your network, work with you on the projects that you need them on. It allows you to focus on what you're best at. It also allows the partner to focus on what they're best at. And you can really leverage strengths whenever you collaborate in that sense. So focus is one of the most important aspects of the work that we do. If you can't focus, then you get lost in the sauce and things can go through the cracks and go extremely wrong. So focus is invaluable and priceless. So that's one aspect of these partnerships, is that it allows you to focus on what you can do best. The next thing is it provides a different level of ownership. Like, we all have had employees that whenever things hit the fan, you're the one that's responsible. You have to take ownership for the mistakes that your employees make. But whenever you have a really valuable partner, if something goes wrong, they take an ownership that an employee doesn't always have that same level of ownership. And so I think that's a really valuable aspect too. Whenever you have that freight partner and something goes wrong with the freight, it's not on you to have to fix that problem. Your partner understands that this was their responsibility and they take ownership of those problems. Also, if you do have to move on from that partner because they made a mistake, it's so much easier to move to another partner than it is to move from another employee. With an employee, now you've got to think about firing the employee and terminating him, and what does that entail? But then also finding the new employee to replace them
Getting them
and
coached
training
up
them on
and
the
ramped up
systems.
and trained to
Oh man.
even if they've got the skill set, they may not have your company mindset or fit in with
And
your culture.
especially
So
if
true.
this area, like if freight is not your area of focus and now you've got to spend all this time focusing on it,
Yeah.
like it's a lot of waste going on. Lastly, we all know that labor costs continue to go up, but it's the biggest expense for us in business is labor costs. And this is one way of reducing your labor costs, especially for something that's not your area of focus. You can reduce the amount of money you're spending on labor while still getting maybe even a better product from somebody else. And if you're worried about, well, I want to be employing people, well, your partner is employing someone. Like
Yeah.
you get to support your partner and they get to employ people. So
And
anyways,
the
those
rising
are the three
costs,
things I think about.
well, and to your point, it's not just the rising cost of labor, it's the availability, which there's
Yeah.
so many gaps on the availability on not just in our industry, certainly in our industry, but in many others. So you'd ask me when we're starting, can you think of any memorable examples where,
Yeah.
collaboration led to a success? Absolutely. Today in multiple cities. It's happening in Miami, Florida. It's happening in Boston, Massachusetts. Today, it's happening in Las Vegas. It's happening here in Orlando. In a couple of those cases, we're the fulfillment partner for somebody that has a need. Up in Boston, that is not a market we're strong at. We used to have an office there, know the experience. Very difficult in our business to be successful there. We've got smart, great partners in our collective that allow us to, when we're asked, says, we want you guys to build something for us. We know who we're going to send it up to make sure it gets moved in and moved out. So I could give you countless examples, but in some ways, this is the trade show industry. We all rely on partners. I think our labor partners, shout out to all the labor companies that, make the investment and do the hard work of finding and attracting labor in a tough market like this. But all the exhibit builders, very few have their own labor entity, right? They're relying on a good labor partner that's known to be reliable in those tough trade show and convention markets. So, I like happening everywhere. It's the norm in our business. I think what the evolution of what we're seeing in our business model, we made a pivot and our model changed where more and more they're giving us a whole project and say, we need you to do all of it, right? So we need you to, build us the exhibit and the messaging that's on it and the flooring and the delivery to and from and the labor up and down. And so the investment we've made in those core markets of ours is in facility and people and inventory. And I mean, it's not an inexpensive proposition. So it is just collaboration is all we do. We don't have any direct client brands that we pursue working with. So we need a collaborative partner to put our guys in the game. So that's how we do it.
Let me ask you this, Chris. When you're, you've talked about your collective of partners, what do you look for in a partner? Like when you're evaluating an opportunity to collaborate with someone, what are you eyeing?
Great question. Are you asking me? So there's two kinds of partners, right? There's those that send work and there's those that receive and fulfill. Which are you asking?
Both. Let's go through each one.
Okay. So what do I look for in a sender partner? I'm looking for somebody that really, that obviously cares about their customer base to the degree that they just want to make sure they're delivering a great, successful, hassle-free experience, as much the experience as the desired outcome of whatever the deliverable is. I'm not looking for people that are calling me in the 11th hour. I mentioned the NPE show. Day 10 of an 11-day move-in, when you're reaching out to me for the first time, asking me to build you the thing that you couldn't figure out on the floor, or got broken or didn't ship in or whatever it is, that's not a great sender for us. That's I think you've heard me say this before, our Experience Builders listeners. We got out of the 911 exhibit business some years ago. It just puts all the partners that we do have that we choose to work with, puts projects at risk when we have to start pulling resources to try and put out someone else's fire. So I think somebody that has said, okay, we're not looking necessarily for the lowest cost guys. We just need to know that you are there, that we know this is a business that has challenges that come up. We want to know that you'll own it and stick with it if some of those variables go sideways. So that's a great sending partner for us. What I look for in a fulfillment partner, quite frankly, is somebody who thinks like we do. When I'm sending you a project in Chicago or San Francisco or Texas or anywhere, I just want to feel like you're as committed and serious about managing it and creating a happy ending as we are. And I can say over 3 decades in this business, we have just an amazing collective of people. We don't go pursuing projects that are not on our own backyards, but we do enough work now for the partners and agencies we work with. They like us and trust us and go, well, I know you're not here, but can you help us with this project here? So whether we build or whether we, sometimes we just refer them over to somebody, but sometimes it's we've already built it. So there's components here we're going to build, but we're going to bring in somebody from our collective that's going to extend our reach and make us look good in those other markets where we don't have our own full-time employees. So yeah, so I think I'm looking for people, trust, credibility, great at communication. I know your process and understand it, so we can work with that. And that you're also good at what we call the overlapping and the baton passing, right? So where are you, where do we stop and you start? And, do you have the skill set to look like an extension of us? Because at the end of the day, right, you and I have talked about oneness before, right? This is what the brand sees. They don't necessarily see all the moving parts and pieces in between. They just want to see that. So, so people that can appreciate that. We're happy being Invisible Ink. So if we're for the fulfillment team for someone else, they get the credit. It's there. We're an extension of them. You know how you say thank you to us? You just please pay your bill on time. That's great.
So when do you really consider them a part of your collective? You've found someone that you like. What does it look like when they're actually in your collective of partners?
So it's a great question. So if you're part of our build collective, so by the way, we used to produce graphics in-house here. And then the people that called on us, they were so good and so fast. In the end, there was just no great financial advantage of us keeping that service in-house. And by the way, they were making a much deeper investment in equipment, things like fabric and grand format sized graphic production. This is back when we were just, we had some inkjet printers and laminators, and that's how we did things. But the market wanted a more sophisticated graphic product, and we chose to use the space we have for other parts of the fulfillment solution, and we let them make the investment. And do we make a little less money for that? We do, but we also don't have to carry those fixed costs during the highs and lows,
right,
the lower swings. So so when we look at the build partners, we do enough woodworking that we did bring that in-house, because we need to be able to, we make a lot of counters and a lot of customized components that go with the pre-engineered frame systems. Transportation, majority of what we do is local delivery. So at some point, right, and what we chose to do was we're going to make an investment in the 26-foot straight trucks, because that covers a lot of what we deliver and pick up. But we've chosen, rather than a guy on the move out of a show spend all day in a marshaling yard waiting for something to be packed up and bill of ladings to be turned in. We have great local carriers or national carriers that are already at the show, and we'll have them handle the return freight for us. We're not charging our clients any different, but it just may be something that's an easier part of our process. So when we talk about, so that's what we call our internal build collective. Then we have those field operation, primarily the labor companies, where we're having projects that we're shipping out that are not taking place in places that we have either a union contract or our own people. And we've got some amazing labor partners. Not to name names, but my friend, if you're listening, Bob Dubinsky up at in Boston at CorpCom events, does a great job for us. The New Vista guys, great for us in a lot of markets. The Eagle guys, man, they are incredible. And a lot of our biggest partners will use Eagle. And there's a bunch of smaller soloist guys. We have figured out, but part of our special sauce, why people come to us, is because we have a collective that can perform. So we're constantly evaluating. Standards matter. You and I talk about standards a lot, right? So they've got to meet, our standard of operation. And so I'm always talking with owners and senior operations people when they deliver to our standard, I'm happy to say their names and shout out. And I know many of our listeners are just as loyal to their own labor companies, and good for you. If they're good for you, stick with them. That's the best way to say thank you.
Yeah. So how do you approach strategically finding the right partners? What are the areas of your business, of your product and deliverables that you start to focus on? Hey, we need to find a outsourced partner there that we can really trust and have in our collective, that no matter what, we can rely on.
So great question. I think what we look at, Khalil, is number one, what is it a core offering of ours? Is it something that we're delivering frequently and regularly, where we go, hey, we gotta be really good at this? Number two, how often is that, right? So is that an investment rate? Two, where are we being asked to do that? Is it only in our backyards? We all get the odd occasional request. So for example, if you want me to produce the 20-foot high balloon archway for your exhibit, I'm probably not going to go out and make the investment in a balloon archway tank and, fill up company, or those resources. But we'll find, and by the way, I get asked for it once a year. So, we'll find somebody, we'll put them in our vendor base. And so that, so you Forrest Gump your way into some of those, but I think we look at what are the 5 core things that we're delivering, some of which we may own in-house. So if it's, I need flooring is what people want from us. It's going to go with the hardware, and the hardware could be the exhibit structure. It could be some of the furniture that goes with that. That's considered hardware. Some of the audio visual components, right? The graphic messaging that's going on there, whether it's different kinds of graphics, whether it's outdoor, whether it's indoor, is it backlit? Is it fabric? Is there preferences? Delivery to and from show site. Is it cross country? Is it local? How well do they know the marshaling yard and how to get in and out of that? Like we look for what those needs are, and then ultimately the professional labor to set it up and take it down. In our own back core markets, we have our own team, and we're signatory to union contracts. In secondary cities, we just make sure we've got people that we use that are in their core cities, and we know because we're in those businesses, we know all the right questions to ask. So it doesn't take long for us to build the bench strength when we need that. It's the occasional stuff that we don't necessarily have a collective for. It's probably a one-off question, Khalil, and I've got great project managers that can source that for somebody. It's not something we're going to charge. Our philosophy is We're not going to find somebody and figure out a way to mark it up 10 or 15%. We're going to find somebody for you. We're going to tell you who it is, and we're going to get out of the way and put you directly in touch with them. If we're not adding value, then we're not, because the budgets are already under attack. You don't need unnecessary layers, in my opinion. So that's part of the way that we stay true to our customer partners, our exhibit house and agency partners. So,
well, and I think that's one of the fears that a lot of people have of disclosing that, hey, we're using an outsourced partner for this aspect of the project that we're delivering to you. How do you handle that conversation with the client?
Oh, great question. Yeah.
And
love
what
this
is
question.
that? How is it received?
So it's funny. I haven't told you this, but there's a couple of guys that I want to bring onto the podcast that are really giving us a fair amount of work, and they're making the decision to do it for good, sound economic reasons for their customer. For example, they're in the middle of the country, and if they go, look, I know you're on this tight budget for this simple 20 by 20 space at a show in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I know what you have to spend, and we're going to use 30% of that budget that you have in round trip freight. I can build it right here in my back room, and we can ship it to Fort Lauderdale and back. And we're going to spend a ton of money on those behind the scenes costs. Because we're who we are, we have access to a collective of providers that only work for the trade companies, and they have inventory. They have frame and custom counters local in those markets. So I would rather use them to build, a lot, if not all of these components. And we're just going to spend a local delivery fee, but let's spend the majority of your budget on the things that dress up that environment that you're going to be conducting business in for 3 days. And so I'm saying we're doing this, Mr. Customer, because this is the smarter spend of your dollars. We'll project manage it for you. Those guys are 100% accountable to us. So, but I'm making this decision because this is the smart spend for you. So my point, Khalil, is if you're saying that to your customer, how's your customer not over the moon loyal to you? And I think that the smart companies are recognizing, we have some companies that go, I'm only going to make 10 or 15%, Chris, on this project I'm giving you. And I'm like, well, that doesn't seem fair. I know we're doing all the build work and the delivery and the labor. And they go, no. This is a great customer. We do $1 million a year. It's okay for one project or a couple of projects that we don't make our normal margin. But this is our responsibility of how we take care of this customer, and we enjoy the loyal relationship that they give us.
Yeah,
that is much more of what we're seeing happen today, post-pandemic, on how collaboration is happening.
Yeah, I think one thing that comes to mind with this, and maybe it's a caution to people, that you mentioned that you don't mark up the outsourced work that you do. And maybe there are instances where you do, but I just think about.
Oh, wait, that's my choice. I'm not saying.
Sure.
Yeah.
And this comes from my experience, something to be aware of as you use, outsourced partners for different aspects of projects. Sometimes what's great about, having a trusted partner that's in your collective is that a lot of times the project management becomes extremely minimal. And maybe this is a caution from the people that don't have that collective and they're just kind of willy-nilly about who they trust with a outsourced aspect, is that when you do that, you have this project management cost, essentially, of you're going to spend a lot of time and energy and attention on managing a project. And if you haven't charged for that, one of the challenging things about project management is that the scope can be almost infinite. Like the number of variables that could go wrong on a project are just, they're so numerous that essentially you can't really build systems around it all the time, and you can't predict what's going to happen. And so the time that ends up going into that is so it's something that you probably should be charging for, right? And that can be
this is
the downsides.
Great. Thank you for bringing this up. So it's only been, it seems recently, but I guess it's been a few years. We proudly will line item project management now on
Yeah.
things we're involved in that, and happy to have the detailed discussion as to why that is. We're not
Yeah.
doing that for cookie cutter things that we're just, pick and packing off a shelf. Right. But there's,
Right.
and it's usually as a percentage of the job, and but it's for what you said. There's so many variables and moving parts and pieces and research or behind the scenes logistical um, uh, time costs, right? We're doing that. I will tell you, and if my business partner Martin, who all of you've gotten to know, is listening right now, he's going to be raising his ear up because am I supposed to talk about this? Right now, we are involved in a project that the majority of anything we're going to make, it's almost exclusively from project management. We were asked by an agency client of ours who knows us for years as one thing, but they came to us several months back. This is a non-trade show event. It's not I was going to say a permanent install, but it really has to have a modular component. But I'm saying this because next Friday, the 17th, is it the 17th next Friday of May, is the grand opening at the Palm Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. Sammy Hagar is partnering with them on a project called Sammy's Island. And this has been in development for months. And they are so the casino was sold, or the resort was sold a while back. It was remodeled. The new owners are in a partnership with Sammy. And so one of the giant pools, and the big thing in Vegas in the summertime is day clubs, right? Thousands of people come out and hang out at the pools. So Sammy's, they're creating a portion and creating an island in the pool. And it's called Sammy's Island, and it can be reserved, and sponsors can have stuff, but it is, there's a bunch of 16, 18 foot high palm trees that are manufactured. This is part of our project. There's kind of a Mayan stone faux rock wall structures there, including directional ones inside the hotel. Now, this is an enormous project that we got a small piece of, but some of these, what we had to provide was so specialized. That's not something an exhibit company's making in their shop. But we have a collective of some, because between what we have in Orlando with, Disney and Universal set contractors, and what you have with all the amazing casinos and resorts in Las Vegas, we have vendor partners that do those things. So, but our profit opportunity there really was being their project manager. We're the crisis management guys. We're in the business with lots of variables, fast changes, short changing lead times, all of those things. So they came to us and go, we know you guys know how to do this kind of stuff. And oh, by the way, make this work for us. And we need it to be able to be moved if we want it to be moved. So that's why we're not planting real palm trees. And it's already led to 2 other projects around town. We're now, somewhere in there, you started asking questions of, what are the challenges when you're really doing collaboration where I'm really more in what is traditionally my partner customer's role. Agencies, let me tell you, agencies are a particular set of professionals, man. So when one of my vendors go, oh, hey, Martin called me this week. He was over in California there to pick up some of the components for this. And they go, oh, yeah, this isn't going to be ready till Tuesday. Well, the thing opens. We're moving in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And Martin goes, what do you mean? He goes, oh, your client called us and they changed the logo. So we're having to redo some of what's being built. And you go, okay, well, that would have been good to know before I made a 5-hour drive over with my box truck team to pick up some of these components. Now, it turned out it was really good that they called because their logo was different and not properly formatted for, some of the laser cutting stuff that needed to be done. But the point is, this is what, to your point about project management, right? Tons of time that goes into this, even if you're not the actual builder of the stuff. So I know our listeners right now that do business with us, this is the world you live in all the time, right? Because we're not typically talking. I mean, this isn't a brand per se. This is an exhibit house client. And of course, then so there's us, there's the agency, there's the specialized vendor with an opinion, and of course, then there is the principal, which is Sammy Hagar, and he has a say, right? So anyway, you look at and that same layer of decision makers is in every project on the trade show side in some form or another. But yeah, do not give away. When I say I don't charge for that, that's a referral of me handing a contact over that I'm willing to co-sign for. But you're right. If we're involved unapologetically, there's going to be a fee associated, and we will absolutely own it for you. If you need us to be those guys, we'll be those guys. So.
Well, I think this is a great topic for people to think more about, especially as, costs are increasing across the board in many areas. It's more than ever, it's valuable to focus a little bit. And I think with anything that involves collaboration, teamwork, being a part of a collective together that's working towards everyone being successful, lifting everybody up, you've got to know your value, and you've got to know the value of those around you. And that's really what we're talking about, the value of an outsourced partner. And I think one big tip that I have for any listeners out there that maybe have partners they rely on, kind of like you mentioned, there's kind of two: those that you rely on for new opportunities and that you serve, and then those that you rely on to execute aspects of your project and your deliverables. And on either side of that coin, just know the effort behind the ask. Because a lot of times when these things go wrong is that you don't understand the effort behind it. How are they charging us so much? Well, do you understand what really goes into that?
That's right.
Or they should have this done like in a couple of hours. Well, do you really understand the effort behind the ask that you have there? And I think when you understand the value that people bring, and you really value the effort behind the ask that you have of people, the collective strengthens, and you're able to do great work together for a long time and really find valuable partnerships where everyone can succeed. So I think this is a really great episode.
You asked the question earlier, what do we look for in an opportunity sending collective partner? And you just said I need them to understand the value of what we do. I promise you, we charge a fair price for the services that we want to over deliver on. But it's when somebody does not understand that, Khalil, and they just think, well, it's just, two guys in a back room and they're just sitting there waiting to be told to do something or whatever it is, or they don't understand the specialized nature or all the details. And you know what? We get a lot of salespeople that are new, right? 53% of the people in the trade show and event business are new in the last 3 years. So they may not fully understand this unique and unnatural process called face-to-face events. So, given that you work with so many different companies in the construction space, can you just begin to imagine some of the communication or the detailed challenges when you get 2, 3, 4 different types of stakeholders in a project, like, the thing you're describing?
Absolutely.
I think that's really, so in thinking about that, what are some of the things we look for? I'm caring about what a partner's process is. First of all, do they have one, right? Second of all, do I understand it? Does it make sense? Because we've got one, but I can use yours or I can use mine. Chances are they're going to have a lot of similarities if we're both, been doing this a while. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges with a new partner is getting dialed in on the communication and the flow of information back and forth. Common language, expectations.
Yeah, it's all expectations at the end of the day. I mean, like you mentioned, I work a lot with construction companies, and new construction's notorious for having subcontractors. And the best GCs have expectation documents that they give to all of their subcontractors, that here's what you can expect from us.
Yes.
We're going to pay you every Friday. We pay out every project every Friday for the work that's been done, right? You're never going to receive a payment from us on Wednesday. So don't ask for it, but you will receive it on Friday if it was invoiced that week, right? So like little things like that. You are responsible for your own cleanup. We will never clean up after your mess, right? So little things like that, having that expectation of what they can expect from you, but also what you expect from them goes a really long way. And just like you do with any client, you go through an onboarding process to set expectations with the client. Do the same exact thing for the people that you're going to partner with day in and day out. If you're going to collaborate on the same project, you're effectively on the team together. We want to know what our vision is, what the values we want to live by, and what our, general ground rules are for making this a successful project, right? So just having those expectations very clear up front and agreeing to them can be a massive, win for the project and getting it on the right track. If you do that, there's very little room for error after that.
A wise man once told me, anything in writing is an agreement, and agreements prevent disagreements, right? So yes, smart GCs figure that out. So put those expectations in a document format. Maybe it's your contract, maybe it's your memo of understanding. It's whatever it is, but agreements prevent disagreements, and it's much easier to hold people accountable and understand what your own accountability is when you can go back and read that, see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think this has been a fun episode. Hopefully it's a interesting conversation for listeners, and maybe there's things that we missed. Maybe there's things that we didn't touch on. If there are, reach out to us in the show notes. You can send us an email and send us your thoughts on having a collective of partners using outsourced services for projects that you work on. We'd love to hear from you. But another fun episode, Chris. Thanks for joining.
As always, I appreciate the collaboration.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Experience Builders Podcast. Check out our website in the show notes or visit crewxp.com to learn more.